55 seconds. For most people, 55 seconds mean nothing. They vanish in the blink of an eye. But for Niki Lauda, those 55 seconds felt like an eternity. It was during that brief window that the Formula One world champion stared death in the face. In those 55 seconds, he defied it, put on his helmet, and walked away. This is the story of Niki Lauda's confrontation with death. It's true that Lauda is as widely recognized for surviving the terrifying crash at the 1976 German Grand Prix as he is for his 3 world championships. Lauda, a man who faced life without illusions, was known for being calculated, methodical, and ruthless. His shadow stretched far beyond the racetrack, and that's to be expected from a Formula One champion. Lauda entered the 1976 season with that title, but he was more than a champion. Over a career that spanned more than a decade, from his first to his 3rd title, he witnessed the transformation of Formula One with his own eyes. He'd watched legends like Graham Hill and Jackie Stewart race, alongside rising talents such as Nelson Piquet and Alain Prost. But Lauda's true legacy wasn't just his championships. It was the profound changes he championed that still keep drivers safe today. However, the cost of getting there was often terrifying. In 1976, Lauda had dominated the season up until the 10th race at the Nürburgring, accumulating 61 points, 45 more than his closest rival, James Hunt. Hunt, the media darling, was charismatic, handsome, audacious, and ready to risk everything for victory. Lauda, by contrast, was meticulous. He was all about discipline and precision. Lacking Hunt's effortless charm, Lauda's thin face and prominent teeth earned him the unkind nickname, the Rat. He couldn't compete with Hunt in looks, but in speed, no one came close. His blistering pace was the result of painstaking preparation, as much as bravery, and a heavy foot. By the start of 1976, Lauda had solidified his position as the fastest driver on the grid. His time at Ferrari earned him a reputation for being blunt and straightforward, though luckily, neither he nor Enzo Ferrari shared a common language. Lauda wasn't afraid to stand up for himself. He was sure of his ability to overcome any challenge, achieve anything, and win it all. So, when the cars lined up for the Nürburgring race in 1976, another championship seemed all but certain for Lauda and Ferrari. But the Nürburgring, a winding track through the Eifel Mountains, had a grim reputation, having claimed 5 lives already. Lauda raised his concerns, pushing for a boycott during a driver's meeting, citing inadequate safety standards and poor fire crews. Yet, his warnings were dismissed, and the race went ahead as planned. Lauda's fears would soon be realized. Starting second on the grid, Lauda had no idea how close he would come to losing his life on the second lap. A light shower before the race convinced him to start on rain tires, but after 1 lap, he knew it was a mistake. He quickly pitted to switch to slicks and charged back onto the track to make up for lost time. However, with his tires still cold, Lauda lost control at Bergwerk on the second lap, and disaster struck. The footage of the crash still feels eerie. As Lauda approached the corner, few could have foreseen that his car would soon turn into a fiery inferno. The car, still filled with fuel, struck the barrier, ripping open its side and turning it into a fireball, spinning across the track. Flames engulfed the Ferrari, but the worst was yet to come. Brett Lunger, approaching the corner, couldn't stop in time and collided with Lauda's burning car, sending it back toward the track's edge. Precious seconds ticked away, moments that could mean the difference between life and death. What happened next depends on which account you read. One widely accepted version comes from Maurice Hamilton's 2020 biography, Niki Lauda, The Biography. According to this account, only one marshal was nearby, poorly equipped to handle the situation. The drivers realized they had to act. Harold Ertl managed to find a fire extinguisher, while Brett Lunger, a Vietnam War veteran, positioned himself near the car. Time stretched on for everyone, but for Lauda, those seconds seemed like a lifetime. Progress was slow until Arturo Merzario, a former Ferrari driver who knew the seatbelt systems well, bravely entered the flames to undo Lauda's 6-point harness. Merzario later recalled, "It wasn't easy. Niki was in agony, pulling against the belts, trying to escape the fire. Thank God he lost consciousness. Only then could I release the buckle. With Lauda's weight freed, Lunger was able to pull him from the wreckage." In later interviews, Merzario reflected on the incident. "Por me lui, esili come me, con 2 braccia, estrarre un corpo umano, come si dice, senza aiuto perché era svenuto, con una facilità. E questo ti dimostra che la necessità aiuta l'ingegno." His heroic intervention saved Lauda's life. Niki never forgot this act of bravery and remained forever grateful. He later said, "There was a guy called Arturo Merzario who jumped into the fire and pulled me out. He saved my life. Another second and I wouldn't have made it." Lauda's injuries were devastating, especially to his head and hands, along with a broken collarbone. He was airlifted to the hospital, but his condition deteriorated quickly. It got so bad that many began preparing for his death. A priest was called to give him the last rites 3 days after the crash. However, Lauda defied the odds and survived. According to legend, when he woke up, he said, "Tell the priest to fuck off, I'm still alive." For 55 agonizing seconds, Lauda had been trapped in a nightmare. His injuries were severe, costing him his eyelids, most of his right ear, and burning his scalp so badly that he would never appear in public without a hat again. Later, he recalled asking a nurse, "When can I look in the mirror?" She told him, "Any time," and turned on a neon light. "My head had sunk into my shoulders," he said. "Shit," I thought, but it got better and better. Despite the horrific accident, Lauda was determined not just to return to racing, but to defend his world title. Less than a month after the crash, he demonstrated his readiness by showing up at Ferrari's test track in Fiorano. Ferrari had already lined up a replacement driver, a move that deeply offended Lauda. Ferrari team manager Daniele Audero vividly recalled Lauda's arrival, looking like a ghost, scarred, pale, his eyes unable to close. But Lauda had a championship to defend. He had missed 2 races, and missing another wasn't an option. Only 33 days after his near-fatal crash at Nürburgring, bandaged and still in pain, Lauda finished 4th at Monza. He had outrun death. By the season finale in Tokyo, Lauda still held a 3-point lead over Hunt. However, the relentless pain and his impaired vision, damaged by the accident, allowed Hunt to seize the title. Yet, the focus remained on Lauda. He had returned from the impossible and fought to the very end. Even more remarkably, the following year, Lauda reclaimed the World Championship. In 1985, after winning his 3rd title, Lauda retired gracefully, having cemented his place in Formula One history. But it was those 55 seconds that would define his legacy. The crash stayed with him, haunting him throughout his life. He passed away on May 20th, 2019, a few months after a lung transplant, an indirect consequence of the toxic fumes he had inhaled 4 decades earlier. If you enjoyed this retelling of Niki's story, check out my other videos on the biggest names in Formula One.